Okay, today we just went over how to graph rational functions and how to determine rational graph features. Well, today we're also going to look at, and I need to add this to this, finding roots, okay? And you can see that the due date says May 21st. That's just because if somebody misses the deadline, I don't have to redo this. Obviously, we did these two already, and I wanted to go over synthetic division to find zeros. So I'm just going to click here. First thing I'm going to do is complete edit. There we go. Okay. We're going to find zeros. So if you recall, yesterday, or whatever day, I'm doing it the next day, because I kind of forgot about this lesson. I need to do this, because we have to have a reason for finding zeros, right? Need to practice it. So the first thing we're going to look at is finding zeros when given a certain zero that we already know of. And in this case, we know of a zero is at 4, 0. Because x is 4, y is 0, then x equals 4. So we're going to find the zeros that go into this function. Okay? Well, I've written out the function here. And we're going to go ahead, and it said x equals 4, right? So we're going to go ahead and do synthetically divide 4 into this function. So cubed, squared, single. Okay. So if you recall, we're going to bring down the first number, first coefficient. Then we're going to multiply. You get 4. 4 times 1 is 4. We're going to add. That's negative 6. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. We're going to add. That's negative 7. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. We're going to add. We get 0. So we've proven that 4 is a 0. Now then, we got to look at these and say, okay, well then this is going to be x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Now we have a quadratic. Now we can go ahead and factor it if it factors, and I believe this one does. So it's a double bubble problem. So that would be what? Minus 7 positive 1. Okay. So then what's this factor? I know x equals 4. I know the zeros here would be negative 1 and positive 7. So the other factor would be x minus 4, wouldn't it be? Now, we got to come back to this problem and figure out what are we supposed to find. Okay, all the zeros, algebraically. We just did that. So now when you do that, all you do is type in the zeros with a comma, and it automatically puts it in subset form. So negative 1, 4, and 7, we submit an answer, and that is correct. Now the synthetically division is all done right there for you. And you can see that the factors were x minus 4, x minus 7, and x plus 1. And so our factors were 4, 7, or our zeros were 4, 7, and negative 1. And we'll do one more of these just to prove it to you. Notice these are all cubics. We're trying to keep this as simple as possible. Okay, so we have f of x equals x cubed minus 12x squared plus 27x plus 40. And we know f of negative 1 equals 0. So that means then that the 0 is negative 1. So I'm going to synthetically divide negative 1 into those terms. Okay, so I'm going to bring down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, are you with me so far? And then negative 40, you get 0. So that means I have x squared minus 13x plus 40 equals 0. Does this one factor? Indeed it does. That's going to be x, minus 8, x minus 5, I believe. So x equals 8, x equals 5, and x equals negative 1. So then we can go back to our equation, and we can type in negative 1, comma, 5, comma, 8. Submit it, and we are correct again. Okay, now I want to do this level 2 quick to show you that's not always that easy. Okay, so we have 2x cubed, f of x equals 2x cubed plus 10x squared minus 24x plus 28, and it says that f of negative 7 equals 0. So we then know that our zeros, or one of our 0 is negative 7. Okay, so I'm going to take negative 7, and I'm going to divide that into the following terms. Bring down the 2, that's negative 14, that's 28, that's negative 28, you get 0. So our equation then is 2x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Now, a couple of things we can do here. We can graph this thing if you'd like. We can factor it if you like. Or we can use the quadratic formula. I'm going to factor out a 2 quick and see what that does for us. Well, the 2, if I divide both sides by 2, it's gone. So we only have to look at this. X squared minus 2x plus 2. It does not factor, because 2 times 1 is 2, but they both have to be negative to get positive 2. To get a negative 2 is impossible. So we got to use the quadratic formula. So opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a gives us 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 8 all over 2. Well, that gives us 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 over 2. Well, if you recall, the square root of negative 4 is going to be 2i, right? So that's 2i. So then the answer would be 2 plus or minus 2i over 2. So 2 goes into all of these, so that's 1 plus or minus I. Well, that's imaginary, is it not? So when I enter these then on my answer sheet, the only real answer is negative 7. So negative 7, comma, and then we're going to do 1, and you see that plus or minus sign? It's there for a reason. 1 plus or minus I, hit enter, and that is correct. There are my zeros. So good luck with that. I think you'll find that's pretty easy. Just replay the video and watch how I do the synthetic division if you need to again and again. But you should be good to go, and good luck this week.